Okay, hi everyone, good afternoon. Thanks for joining the webinar today, which is overcoming the top 3 inventory pain points, which we're running in conjunction with RFSMART. It's Alan Miles here, I'm the NetSuite Sales Director at Eureka Solutions, and I'm just about to hand over to David Cronin from RFSMART, who will be taking us through the presentation today, along with some colleagues. So yeah, thanks for joining, and over to you, David.
Great, thanks, Alan, and thanks everyone for joining as well. So to kick off the webinar today, the topic that we're going to be going through is the top 3 inventory pain points that we would typically see with our customers and prospects, and over here in EMEA. So just to introduce a few of the members of the team who you'll be listening to today. So myself, I'm David Cronin, so I'm the account executive for EMEA for our RFSMART and NetSuite products. I also have our EMEA sales director, Damien Fox, on, who's a 10-year experience at RFSMART in a multitude of roles, but leads our EMEA team from the front. And I've also got Jaap Martens, who is our senior solution consultant, who runs all of our demos for all of our prospects and customers on our RFSMART and Oracle Cloud products. And Jaap will be going through a little bit of a run through of a demo later on in the webinar. So I'll go through a little bit of an overview on RFSMART's top 3 pain points that we see in the warehouse. I'll talk through a few customer stories and some of the advantages they've got related to those 3 pain points. I'll pass over to Damien to talk through a little bit of our return on investment and how we kind of calculate the rate of return and things like that for some of our customers. I'll pass over to Jaap to go through a quick run-through overview of the demo, and then we'll open it up at the end for questions and answers. So a little bit about RFSMART. So we were founded in 1982 by a gentleman called George Morales. Always been in the supply chain industry with a multitude of products, but typically working with some of the top ERP systems, so JD Edwards, Oracle Cloud, and NetSuite being 3 of the prominent ones. With regards to NetSuite, we built that product 8 years ago now. And our strategy when it comes to building products on top of these ERPs is really to build them from scratch and on the platform. And there's a couple of reasons why we do that. We want to, first of all, partner very closely with the likes of NetSuite and Oracle, but obviously NetSuite prominently here. But also having a native product is a real benefit to a lot of our customers, and it's a strategy that we took because what that means is there's zero integration, very bought into the platform. There's little or no differentiation between the 2 kind of user interfaces and things like that. So it's definitely a strategy that we work towards when we work with ERPs. We're headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. We've got offices on the West Coast in Denver, and we have a local office here in the UK up in Leeds, where we have myself and Damien situated in the UK, Jaap's in Spain. And then we have a full implementation practice and support team based in our Leeds office. So all of our projects are implemented locally. Typically, most of them will be done remotely, but we do have that capacity to be able to come on site if possible. But that local support is definitely important from a new business side of things, but also from a customer side of things. So as I mentioned, we're built for NetSuite. That was an important strategy that we took 8 years ago when we brought this product to market on the NetSuite platform. So there's no servers or codes on the device. It's all based on a URL system. So you just sign in. There's no installed software. We just need an Android system and with access to Google Chrome, and you'll be able to log in on any of those scanners or devices that you would typically see in the warehouse. We have a robust cycle count system. The real unique selling point there is the fact that you don't actually have to close down operations to use our cycle counting, so you can pick while doing cycle counts as well. Real-time transaction updates, so the 24/7 live system that you have with NetSuite is replicated with RFSMART. We don't actually host any of the data. It's all in NetSuite. We're just processing transactions and replicating that data back into NetSuite, so you get that real-time transaction data. So from being able to see all of that data in the system, but also being able to analyze it and do dashboards and reports and things with the NetSuite system. We can, the data that we replicate can really utilize that. So we can work in a number of ways. We're very flexible with our product. Advanced bins, with bins, without bins. We can work with a number of different warehouses, or how you actually operate within NetSuite. And we've been very successful in a close partner as well. So we've been Suite Cloud Developer of the Year as well in 2014. So just a little bit of a talk on the types of Suite apps that you would typically see within NetSuite. So you have hybrid and integrated. Hybrid being a portion of the solution will have been built within NetSuite, and then some of it actually is hosted outside of NetSuite. In integrated Suite app, where the majority would, or all of it would actually sit outside of the platform, you'd need some sort of integration tool to bring that data in and out. But we sit in the bucket of being a native Suite app. So as I mentioned before, it's fully native. We utilize the NetSuite platform to be able to do that. And all of that data, as I mentioned, is replicated straight back into your NetSuite instance. So onto the inventory pain points that we typically see. So the 3 pain points that we typically see are data integrity, operational accuracy, and ongoing costs. So I'll just go into a few of those individually now with some of our customer stories as well to show you what we're kind of talking about. So with regards to data integrity, it's really looking at or being confident in the inventory and the data that you actually have within NetSuite. So if we look at a company like Pet Shop, so they bought NetSuite back in 2014, and then they bought RFSMART subsequently in 2017. The reason for buying a WMS was because they moved to a bigger warehouse, and they were forced down that route. And what they really found was that they didn't really see the benefits of a WMS before being forced into actually having to buy one. So they really looked to utilize a WMS system and really see the advantages. So they had a lot of obsolete stock. They wanted or tried to do a first in, first out system, because they do have stock like pet food that has an expiration date, but what they didn't really have any idea of where a lot of the stock was. All of the new stock was being picked first. So that kind of old obsolete stock was creating a big issue for them, because they just didn't know where it was and they couldn't be directed towards it. And they picked RFSMART really because of its native functionality. It really reduced the risk for them, and there was no real risk as far as lost data or being able to see where the items are. So that was a key reason for Pet Shop buying RFSMART. When it comes to Allied Hygiene, so they're a manufacturer of industrial wipes. So what they were doing was they were doing full stock counts on a very regular basis, on like a monthly basis, because the numbers were just way off, and it was just something they had to do. So errors in picking efficiency was a real issue. And then being able to move to something like RFSMART, where they could really get a hold of that data and make sure that it was fully accurate in the system, was a key reason for them looking at RFSMART and eventually purchasing them. So that was also the platform to be able to go onto an operationally excellent warehouse. And the one other key benefit I'll just kind of touch on is they had real-time views of what the status was in these sales orders. So if customers were calling up to see a status of an order, they could give that straight away. So that real-time visibility into the warehouse stages of the process was massive for them, for their operations, but also for their customer satisfaction. So with regards to operational accuracy, I've got a couple of customers that we're talking about here. So it really kind of filters through from data accuracy. And as I mentioned there, it's really building that platform of the data to be able to operate in a way and really make strategic decisions instead of reactive decisions. So that's definitely a key thing for a lot of these customers here. So JT bought RFSMART again. It was the native functionality that was the real key desire for them, and it allowed them to procure the system, but also implement it very quickly. Adoption of a familiar user interface. So having seasonal staff, a high churn rate in staff as well, to actually get people using the system and adopting it and getting up to speed on it was a huge benefit to them once it was implemented. And building on data accuracy as well, having that accurate data in the system really allowed them to operate in the way that they wanted to. So just one example there with JTape is the decreased assembly build time by 75%, which was a huge benefit for them. And finally, Frescoeball Carioca. So the reason they were looking at something was they were forecasted for 98% growth, and they were very worried about whether they could keep up with the demand of this forecasted growth. So they needed to implement a new WMS system to be able to handle it. Operationally, as you can imagine, it was a very big concern for them with the increasing demands, not just for that forecast year, but also the future years that they were looking to continue that sort of aggressive growth. So a big benefit for them was once it was put away into the warehouse, it was immediately available for their retail and online channels. So they could really operate in an efficient and quick way to manage that sort of demand that they were forecasting. And the operational costs from Frescoeball Carioca were reduced by $40,000. And that's $40,000 a year. So that paid for the system and some as well. So it was a really good, and I'm sure Damien will go into a little bit more detail on the ROI aspect that we have later on in the webinar. And finally, ongoing costs. So enhancements and support. If I was to describe the way RFSMART operates as a business, we're definitely a product-led business. So if you look at all of our customers, 90% of what they use would actually be base product. There are certainly occasions where we have to make tweaks because all warehouses are different and have different processes. So we actually scope and cost those pre-sale. So what that allows us to do is, first of all, give you a very accurate proposal of what a 3-year contract will look like from a pricing, no hidden costs. So everything discussed will be either in a base product, or if we need to do an enhancement, that will be scoped and costed and proposed up front. So maintenance of the system as well, being native, that creates less of a headache when it comes to things like integrations. We fully support the product, both for base product and for enhancements. So we have a 24/7 live support desk. We have a support desk in the UK, in the US, and in Australia. So we're fully supported at a 24/7 live basis as well. And finally, native NetSuite. So we don't host any data, as I've touched on before. It's all hosted in NetSuite, so there's no real issues or risks or concerns from that point. And that really is a risk mitigation as well with regards to any sort of lost data. If integrations break down, which they can do, there's no real risk of that happening with RFSMART, because there's absolutely no integration between our system and NetSuite. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Damien now to just take through the next few slides, and then we'll get on to the demo.
Great, thank you, David. So obviously with every system, there's, what value can we bring, and what operational benefits do we bring to the table in regards to managing inventory. And these are the 3 main pillars really around accuracy, visibility, and productivity. So the accuracy, if I take a customer today that's going from manual business processes whereby I'm going to grab my notepad, I'm just doing some manufacturing, or I've picked some products, I'm going to be using this pad, I'm going to write that down, and at the end of the shift, I'm going to pass that to a colleague, or at the end of the day, or maybe I misplaced this piece of paperwork, or maybe I incorrectly write down some material items, quantities, or even batch or serial numbers. And then that second person picks it up and has to input it into NetSuite, the ERP and system of record. Well, throughout all of those steps, there's lots of touch points. It's manual, it's probably passed over hands by at least twice into different people's possession, and then whether it gets done at all is another question mark. So the accuracy of being able to, as soon as I touch a product, receive it, move it, pick it in a warehouse, maybe issue it as part of manufacturing, I'm going to be transacting with my device real time. So I'm validating the item, I'm validating the batch, validating where I've taken it from, and I'm validating where I'm putting it to as well. So that accuracy is driven right up there to almost 100%. It's same on the picking side as well. So I'm much more accurate now. I know what I'm picking. I know where I'm picking it from. I know what's in the warehouse. I know I can fulfill my manufacturing orders as well, because I've got confidence now because I'm using a real-time data collection device such as RFSMART. The other benefit of that, and this brings a lot of kind of discipline and ownership to the operational side as well, is now everybody's got to transact differently. It's no longer paper. We've got to use a device if we touch that data. So there's that element of passing the baton on to each of those operational team members, because we could have a goods in team, we could have a manufacturing team, and certainly an outbound and packing team as well. So there's many different teams, and we all have a responsibility now to transact that data. And as we do that, we're touching on that second pillar of visibility as well. Because I'm touching and transacting and updating NetSuite in real time, that visibility of what I've got and the transactions of who did what when in the system is absolutely online all the time, and it's in your ERP where you would want it to be as well. With that, the third pillar, and I'll focus a little bit more on that in some of the scenarios on the next couple of slides, is the productivity gain. So I'm no longer writing that down manually. I'm no longer running around the warehouse looking for stock because, you know, Fred's just moved it this morning, or Fred has not put it away, or Bob's made a mistake in the warehouse, etc. Apologies, Fred and Bob there. But the productivity gain is much quicker, and we say that typically per user you would have a 20 to 40% bump on productivity, because I'm eliminating that manual step. And I'm eliminating that data entry into the ERP system, because now I'm scanning in 3 or 4 transactions. You'll see when the app does the demonstration, and it's updated real time into NetSuite. Next slide, please, David. So this, I've got 3 examples here. So on a typical, there's a lot of detail here. Obviously, it's been recorded, so these details will be available afterwards, and happy to share this kind of calculation. But when we look on a return on investment, we can look at many different areas. This particular one is focused on, if you see right in the middle under expected results, we've got a 20% productivity bump based on, over on the right hand side, we've got 20 workers, 8 hours per day, so 1 shift. And we're working 5 days per week at a standard rate of £10 an hour, just to keep the calculations nice and simple. Well, if we roll in our cost of the project, which is 51k in year 1, because we've got to implement it and invest in 20 devices of hardware, and then the ongoing typical SaaS subscription for 20 users at 22k per year in years 2 and year 3, we're looking at approximate benefit there of 7.4 months to pay for that year 1, and then subsequently in years 2 and 3, it's a 3.2 month payback. And what we're doing there is, the saving is we're 20% more productive in the warehouse and manufacturing and shop floor, because I'm saving time, and these people can do other tasks. It's not probably about eliminating people from the workforce. It's more about I can do more with the team that I've got. Now, the second example I've got is it cranks it up a little bit further. I mentioned 20 to 40% productivity. So on the next slide, you'll see the slight increase of just 5% there to 25%. It impacts, again, the payback, so less than 6 months. And then it takes that reoccurring payback for the subscription cost down to 2.5. So that's simple kind of change. And finally, if we roll in now I'm transacting real time. Now I know I've got inventory accuracy from goods in all the way through shop floor, all the way through to the outbound side. We can have a look at, well, before, when I was manual, I probably overstocked, and I did made to order, but I made to stock as well, because I wasn't comfortable with how much inventory I got. And I don't want to let the customer down when they say they want 100 and I find out I've only got 90, and I I either short ship again because of the picking accuracy, or I have to do a back order of that. So I've changed here the inventory reduction. So if we take a inventory level of 5 million, so if my warehouse stock is worth 5 million, my annual sales is 10 million, and I'm saying because my carrying cost is 20% of the inventory value to run a warehouse, run insurance, run lighting, heating, etc. If I reduce the inventory value of 5 million by just 5%, it again cranks down that payback because we've got more space in the warehouse to utilize. It's lower running costs on that carrying cost, and that's a specific Gartner example there. And again, we just play that payback down to 4 months and then down to less than 2 months in years 2 and 3. So there's many ways to look at this from a payback. The last thing we want to do is overcommit on what we can do. So we're very conservative with these types of projects. And this was just a couple of examples to show you how we can, help build a business case for such a project, and happy to answer any questions. And if there's no questions, we can move to the next slide. Just want to take a pause and see if anyone's out there with any questions.
Perfect. I think we can move over to Yap. So
okay.
I'll stop sharing Yap and pass it over to you.
Thank you, David. Sharing my screen here, and please let me know if it's coming through on your end.
Yeah, we can see that.
Great. Okay, so what we're looking at here is NetSuite, as you're probably familiar with, right on the left-hand side, an example of a purchase order that we're going to look at. But on the right-hand side, we have RFSMART on the mobile scanning device with a long list of functions, right? So it's really depending on your role within the organization. You might have one or more functions available to your user logging into the mobile scanning device. We're going to get started with the first example here of receiving the goods in. So the truck is showing up. We're going to unload the truck, and we talk about the purchase order receiving function here, which starts with identifying that PO that we are going to receive for my location that's already defaulted, right? So the warehouse where I typically work is already defaulted in here for this user. And there are a couple of ways to get started. So if you're lucky and you get the packing slip with the barcode, you can scan that PO number and get started that way. You can also key it in, or you can load the list here of open POs for my location and see those by vendor, maybe sort those. So the latest one in the system here is that 471 that we're looking at. So I might select it here as well using the touchscreen of the mobile device and get started. So that will open the PO lines as we see here, those 3 items and those quantities. And we see that we are receiving them into the receiving bin. So it's my default receiving bin where we move them first and then come back later on with a separate put away transaction. We take the goods from there and move them to the correct location within the warehouse afterwards. So first of all, if your products are properly barcoded and labeled already, I can grab my scanner and immediately get started here on the screen, scanning that first item. That's going to validate if that item indeed matches what we ordered on that PO. And in this case, it does. So now we can confirm the quantity that we received. And if everything went well, we got 10 of those in there as ordered, right? So I confirm that, yeah, that's fine. Those are all there. Then that line turns green and moves all the way down. And therefore, whatever I'm looking for next, especially if you have a large number of lines on your POs, everything that you're looking for next is then on the top of the list here. And we do support lot controlled items, serialized items, where we would have an additional step to capture that lot or serial detail. As an example here, where I would scan a lot controlled item, and then we have to capture that lot detail as well. So this might be a production batch, and I'm confirming that all of those 10 are indeed part of that same lot. I could also have 5 on one lot, 5 on another lot, and so forth. So receiving all of those in, again, a green line. And one more example here. If I scan the last item, that's for a larger quantity. So 600 of those, well, immediately I can hit this complete button instead of keying in 600, right? So that's why we have the button there. The other thing, we can print labels if these goods are not properly labeled just yet. I can accordingly to a template, print my barcodes for this product and label them at this point immediately when the goods come in to then identify them and scan them later on in the warehouse. So that's there, and I can put additional data elements on those templates. Think about any data that you have in NetSuite that might be required on those labels. We can also update the UPC number for that item. So with that, I'm referring to the UPC number that sits on the item within NetSuite. So let me open that. But I can use a scanner if there's a new version of the product and I want to override the current UPC number for that product. I can scan it in here, and that would replace the UPC number that we see here on the item on the left-hand side. Now, if I go 2 screens back, the other thing that I could have done here would be scanning a pack of maybe 6 of this product. And we still identify the same product here, but to receive 600 as ordered in box of 6, well, then we talk about 100 of those packs, right? So that's another option. And the way that we do it is extending NetSuite's item record here with an RFSMART tab. And then we talk about the multiple UPC tab. So I'm moving in there. Then we'll see that for a box of 6, indeed, this could be the UPC that's barcoded and what I just scanned there, right? So those unit of measure conversions are respected. Those boxes of 6 are there, all 100. That's great. Everything turns green. And I can now submit this receipt transaction. So in a second, once we're here back on the PO, so far nothing was received. So we do see all of these 0 for now. But once we complete the transaction, we get a green message back on the mobile device confirming that that was successful. And then it immediately updates those lines on the PO here with those quantities. And it will also create a related record that I will open up. So we see the green bar here on the bottom. I refresh the screen here and we'll see those quantities reflected, 610 and 10 for these lines. And like I said, the related records being created in NetSuite as usual. So there we have the item received. And there's a little bit more to talk about on that received, because everything that you do on the mobile device using RFSMART will be captured in terms of an RFSMART transaction. Now I'll show you what that looks like. So here we go into some additional RFSMART detail. And here we have the RFSMART transaction. This shows us the user of the mobile scanning device, as well as how long it took this person to complete this transaction, 219 seconds. So that's nice on the inbound side, but also think about the outbound side. And we look into sales order picking later on, where you can then build graphs like these and get some insights on how your employees are performing their job compared to others, right? The number of picks per person and how that would then look like over time and so forth. So just an illustration of what's possible using that additional data that we capture. So that's that. And like I said, we just moved those goods from the truck into the receiving bin or the loading dock, kind of the reception area. But next would be then moving the goods from there into my warehouse. So we talk about the bin put away function next on the mobile device here. So that would then start, of course, from that location where we received those in initially. So that's again defaulted to my receiving bin. And from here, I can now scan those items again, maybe of those newly printed barcode labels, right? So that's just the first item there. Again, I grab the full quantity of 10 that we received earlier. And then the system is going to help me a decision on where to drop those off. So yeah, I confirm those 10 are there. And we see a list of locations within my warehouse, a list of bins here that give me guidance on where these products go. So usually they go to my preferred location, the one with the star next to it. That's where we usually drop those off. There's a last put away date giving me some guidance, as well as current on-hand quantity of the product in that location. And for this top one, just as an illustration, we can also work with maximum level of product in this bin. And therefore we can show you the capacity of the remaining capacity of the product in that location. That could give me some guidance there as well. But I'm moving on and I follow the preferred bin here. So the next step here is to scan the actual bin. So the actual the rack, the row, the aisle, right, where I'm dropping these off. That's what I'm confirming. And that's the A12. So scanning that there. And that completes the transaction, immediately increasing the on-hand quantity of the product in that specific location. Now, there are a few others that still are waiting there for me. So yes, I can continue scanning with the next item, but I can also use the load items button and look for those remaining items that are still sitting there waiting for me. And those are the other 2 lines that we received already. And these flow in a similar fashion. So that's in a nutshell an illustration of how the inbound side of things could look like. If there are no questions, and please feel free to write your question in the chat or speak up if you have any. Otherwise, I would move on to the outbound side. So picking of sales orders with a example here next. So it sounds like we're all good. So then next example here. So we talk about sales orders here for a specific customer. We can talk about the work that's already assigned to a specific picker. So we can add that to the sales order and use that in a minute. But my example is simple. We have 2 lines on the sales order. We need to grab 4 of these and 5 of these products here. And that's what I'm going to do here on the right-hand side with sales order picking. And sales order picking will be available in a number of flavors. So we can work 1 sales order at a time, but we can also decide, well, we're going to start with a number of sales orders, and in one pass through the warehouse, I kept all of these items at once and moved those over to the guys at the packing or staging side, either by grabbing everything in bulk or by separating those out into different buckets, maybe during that walk through the warehouse. But I keep it simple. My single sales order pick here will be for that sales order that we're looking at, which could be scanned immediately into this field, right? So it could be my starting point of a print from the supervisor and tells me, well, go and work on this order, that's fine. But we can also use some filters here to pull up a list of open orders in the system for me to work off. So it could be, like I said, by picker, right? If the picker is assigned to the sales order, I can use that and look for those picks for me today. I can also filter by items being in stock or not. So maybe I only want to see those sales orders where we have everything available, as well as the shipping method. So maybe Tuesday morning, Royal Mail showing up, or it's UPS or FedEx, right? These have to be ready today. So I might want to select those first and get started on those sales orders that I then can pull up on the list here. So in this list, we see everything meeting my criteria. I can still sort them. So maybe ship by ship date, customer, and so forth. So probably the last one in the system is here, the top one that I'm looking at here on the left as well. So I'm selecting that using the touchscreen again. And I get started using the list of items and the locations where I can find those items, and scanning my way through those transactions, similar to what we've seen before, but actually confirming where I took the item from. So here we have the first product, and there's validation going on, right? If these products look very similar, and I might grab the wrong product, well, that doesn't allow me to proceed, right? It's going to throw me this error message at the bottom of the screen, and I cannot proceed picking that one. So I grab now the correct product, scan the item there, and that's the right one. And it tells me, well, that item, is that indeed pin A12, or, well, maybe I cannot reach it, maybe there's a forklift in the way, then I can look at other locations where we do have the product on hand in stock as well, and maybe move there and grab it from there. So that's the that's a bin that suggested there, A12, that's the one I'm scanning here. So we confirm that we took it from there, the quantity of 4, and we can move on to the next line. So next product, and exactly the same way. That's the product, that's the B11 location where I take it from, and the quantity of 5. And everything is green, and I can submit that transaction. And what I will do, that will, of course, update those lines to picked quantities, and it will also create a fulfillment record against that sales order in a picked status, with, again, that level of detail that we've seen before on the RFSMART record, confirming who picked this order and how long it took that person to complete the job. So that, in a nutshell, on the simplest version of sales order picking, and there's much more to talk about in terms of how we can group sales orders together and release them into waves to the warehouse for people to work maybe off a batch of orders and so forth. But this just as an illustration of the most simple example. Now, if there are no further questions, I can move on with this sales order and talk about packing. So let me see if this process through. Like I said, we just picked the order for now, and we can talk about, well, fulfilling the order also means maybe putting it in boxes, packing the order, and eventually shipping it out. So that's where we provide the packing station, right? So not only these move from picked, but then through packed as well. And that's what I'm going to show next. So we work off the same sales order that's just been picked at 10606. And we can take a look at the packing station next. So that could be by the same person. It might be by a different person, a different team of people working on those packing stations. And what we see there is usually a terminal-based application, maybe with tethered scanner connected to it, where we get started. And this might be running full screen there, right? So no need for a mobile device there. We can open up that same sales order. And there's one more validation here of those items that we put into the boxes. So before we sending those out to the customer, there's one more round of validation here. This is also where we would be printing any documents that go with the shipment, as well as any shipping labels that might be interfaced and be triggered at this point as well. So this starts with what we see here, the box type that we're going to pack the goods into, which might be my standard box or something custom as a one-off. But if I respect the standard one, that's going to be my first box. What we see here is a list of items that we should be packing. We're packing them into box 1 in the bottom right here. Now the box is still empty, but if we scan our way through this list here, we'll see that the weight is added to the box. So that's the first one. And there are 3 remaining ones as we see there. So I'll just continue. And because we have a large quantity, I set this to, well, scan each product once. And that's the last one moving over. So we're at 4.6 kilos for that first box. And if for whatever reason I want to pack the remaining items into a different box, I can use the Add Box button here on the left bottom hand side to maybe move the other ones into a bag. So there we go. Those 5 are now moving into this second box because the first one has already been closed. So equally, the remaining 5 items will be moved over in the same way. 3 more, few more of those products, and that's all there is to it. So this is going to be a bag of 2 kilos, and I can submit the transaction, which will first of all update the sales order from just picked to packed. We can also decide, well, at that point we're done, so it's going to fulfill the order completely. We set it to fulfilled. Once that's done, and we will trigger those prints immediately. So it could be your master packing slip that goes into here. And what we also do, because we pack those into 2 boxes, is we create unique box records related to the item fulfillment here. So that means that we can always come back to those box records and know exactly what we send out and in which box to that customer. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I refresh the sales order here in the left-hand side after packing, you see that these have been reflected here, packed and fulfilled. And then we have of course, the fulfillment record, and we can look a little bit more detail, the shipped fulfillment record here, because I talked about those boxes. So you can open those up as well. And there we go. So I talked about those boxes. So here we see the correct weight of those boxes, but we also see it's box number 599 and 600. So those are unique boxes related to that fulfillment record for this sales order. And I can always come back to those records, right? So if after a week or so there's something wrong, I can type in 599 and I will find that packet box here. And I can see exactly what moved into those boxes. So these were the items that we scanned and validated as packing. And that's what's been sent out according to our system. So there we go. In a nutshell, from packing all the way through to putting those into boxes. And one thing I might have missed here is that at that box, fulfillment box level is where we would integrate maybe the tracking numbers of your carriers as well. So that's why we can at the box level look at the tracking numbers here and trigger those shipping labels as well. So that's that quickly from picking through packing. And next on the agenda would be talking about some of the cycle counting, right? So something that you might be already very good at, something that you might be doing just once a year and shutting down your business, but definitely where RFSMART can add a lot of value. So let me see if time allows. It's a quick time check, David.
Yeah, are we okay, Alan, or are we running low on time now?
We're just about at the end of the time that we had scheduled, so I don't know if it's worth checking if there's any questions or whether we could carry on for 5 minutes maybe.
Yeah. So either way, let me know and speak up if there are any further questions. If not, quickly about counting, right? So like I said, RFSMART goes much further in terms of counting, where we can create a stock count and create those very granular for maybe just a section of the warehouse or for a group of items. So this would be what it would look like for the supervisor, creating such a count for one of my warehouses, giving this count a name, and then make a decision on maybe making it a directed count, so therefore cycle count, where at the bottom of the screen we'll see which items are included. This could be included by maybe those items that are counted every 30, 60, or 90 days, and that range falls within these 2 dates. Maybe a group of items, so specific items that I group together to be counted, or maybe my A, B, C classified items, or a section of the warehouse, so a from and to bin, or any other search that you have on the item that I can include to pull those items up. Maybe some filter criteria that I want to add there, and then say, well, create a count for all of these items across all locations, all bins within the warehouse at the bottom of the screen here. So maybe I want to create a count here for all of these items. And by the way, I can do this as a one-off, but I can also then come back to this selection of items or locations to be counted and schedule this accordingly so that this comes back every month, every 2-3 months. Now, once we created such a count, we can go to the mobile device and execute the count again with a number of flavors, but I'm going to talk about the directed one, right, where I get instructions on what to count as opposed to on the fly creating a new count. So here we'll see the open counts for me to work off. I've created one earlier, so it could be this one here. Let me see if that's the one that's matching. No, let's grab the JM3, so jumping back one screen. Basically presenting me a list of all items and all locations for me to look at. So if I grab the one that we're looking at there, the 92, we'll see all of those items. And I grab the scanner, scan that first item, counting it in this specific location, and I find maybe 400 of that product in there. That's all there is to it, right, from the mobile scanning device. Now, we didn't show you how many we have in stock. That's what the supervisor sees or knows in here, but not on the mobile device. So let me show that again, grabbing one item there from this location. And I just have to know, well, we've got 3,000. Well, I count those. I don't know anything. 3,000 of those are in there. And again, that's submitted over to that count. So if I look at those results, then immediately I can see what was counted and by whom. So I can see when that's been counted. So we see 400. Well, that's a little bit less than what we thought we have. And this is way off, way below what we have in the system. So, well, who counted this? Again, this person at this point in time. And all of those count results come in the same way. Once we're happy, we can say, well, that's all there is to it. We're going to complete that count. So no more counts are coming in from the mobile device. And we can then go very granular in making decisions on what to do with those discrepancies. So updating the system with the corrected item levels there, and maybe approve those differences with a reason and against a specific account within NetSuite. But really line by line here, making selections, right? So that's what it's all about, or maybe even creating a new count for those selected lines. So that in a nutshell, that's all I had. Let me hand back to David and the Eureka team.
Thanks, Jaap. So yeah, that's we're just open for Q&A. If we've got a couple of minutes, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. If not, I'll hand back over to you, Alan.
Yeah, so to see if there are any questions at all before we finish up for today. No, so Well, that's great. Thanks, David, Jaap, and Damien for the presentation. It was great. So for those who attended, our account managers will follow up with you, but if you have any questions to ask straight away, then please just let your account manager know. We'll also share the recording with you and any colleagues who couldn't attend today. But yeah, thank you very much for attending. Hope it was useful, and see you soon. Thanks. Bye.